You are listening to the ADHD Support Talk Radio podcast. ADHD Support Talk Radio is sponsored by ADDclasses.com. Sign up now for a free webinar by going to www.addclasses.com. And this is Tara McGillicuddy, co-host of ADHD Support Talk Radio. And today I have an interview with Tara Matlen about stress management tips for adults with ADHD. This interview originally aired at the ADHD Awareness Expo back in 2014, but stress is always such a relevant topic for anybody, especially those of us with ADHD. So take a listen, and I hope you find some stress management tips here.
Tara, I'm a psychotherapist, a consultant, a writer, and a coach, and I run a couple of websites. ADDconsults.com is my main website, but I'm also running a really cool online program for women with ADHD who are looking for online coaching, and that's at queensofdistraction.com. I'm also the author of 2 books, Survival Tips for Women with ADHD, and I have a new book out called The Queen of Distraction, which I think you can see here. Yep. Just came out last week, so I'm really excited about that. So most of my work is with women, but I work with men and women with ADHD, and if you want to get a hold of me, you can either find me on my website at addconsults.com, or you can email me at terry@addconsults.com.
Okay, great. Yeah, Terry has great resources. I highly recommend checking out her website and her books and all her other great online resources. So today we're going to talk about some stress management tips. So Terry, where would you like to get started when it comes to managing stress?
Well, I am guessing that most people watching this clip are going to say, oh, she's going to talk about the same old thing. You should eat healthfully, get 8 hours of sleep, exercise, and meditate. And we all know those things help ADHD. They help anybody who has stress in their lives. So yeah, but now research is actually showing that for adults with ADHD, meditation and exercise are huge ways to relieve stress. So, but let's put that aside because we all kind of know that, and get into some other tips that might be helpful to you, men and women with ADHD. And one is what I call see it coming and have a plan. So, for instance, if you're a mom with a dad or a mom with ADHD, you go grocery shopping and your child always has a meltdown at the grocery store, and both of you fall apart because it's just a no-win situation. See it coming and have a plan would mean, okay, I know that's not going to work. We're all going to get blown away by this. So consider leaving your child home and going grocery shopping without your child. So that's sort of like an example of see it come in and have a plan. And you can use this in many ways. Another example might be you hate going to parties. You get really stressed out because you get overwhelmed. A lot of us get really overwhelmed with a lot of people and conversations, and we have a hard time filtering out all the noise that we hear. So we get anxious and our ADD really kicks in. We can't focus. We can't stay connected with the person. So seeing it coming, have a plan would be, okay, I'm going to go to this party, but what works for me is by, having like a conversation with just one person, maybe 2, in a quiet area. So you could go to a party and say, hey, I really want to hear what you have to say. It's very important to me. Can we go to a quiet room and have a one-on-one chat instead of being in this large room full of noise? So another example.
That makes a lot of sense because people just get so overwhelmed and just say, okay, I'm not going to do this, or they put it off, or they go there and just are so overwhelmed and don't have a good time. So it makes so much sense to kind of have an idea of what might happen and plan for it.
Yeah, and that's exactly it, because there's that whole component of impulsivity. If someone says, oh, would you bake, 20 brownies for the hockey team, your kid's hockey team, and we're inclined to say sure. And then what happens? We get stressed out. Oh my gosh, I got to do it. Oh my gosh, I have to run to the store. Oh my gosh, I can't find the recipe. So that impulsivity hits us, and then we, fall into this thing that we continually do to ourselves. So seeing it come and have a plan would be, well, do I have to say yes every time somebody asks me to do something? Mm-hmm. So learn to say, let me think about it, and I'll get back to you. That's one idea because of that impulsivity. And also, we as adults with ADHD tend to be people pleasers. A lot of us don't really know that or recognize that in ourselves. So we have this inclination to automatically say, sure, oh yes, I'll babysit, or yeah, I'll take on your work while you're, on vacation for a week.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So what would be another type of thing people could do to help manage stress?
Always be aware of your environment. So say you like to go out for dinner on Friday nights with your boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, partner, whatever, your family, and you get really tense. So it also kind of ties in with see it coming in hand, but really start to plan ahead of what you are comfortable doing. So if a certain restaurant really makes you uptight because there's a lot of commotion, pick a place that's calmer, that's quiet. If you can find a place that's outside, because we know through research that green space really helps ADHD symptoms and lowers our stress level. So finding places where you go when you go grocery shopping, find smaller markets instead of these huge mega markets where you're just slammed by stimuli and get stressed out so easily. So thinking about your environment, where do you need to be, where can you make it easier for you when you need to get out. Another tip would be avoiding unpleasant tasks when you're feeling overwhelmed. So if we go into, I do talk a lot about women with ADHD, and we know that hormonally we have difficulties when we're younger women every month. And so those would be times where you might say, no, I am not going to go on vacation, or no, I'm not going to take on this new project at work, or no, I'm not going to have a party for my, my boyfriend or whatever. Mm-hmm. So beginning to be more in touch with times that are difficult for you. For older women, it would be who are in perimenopause or are menopausal, recognizing that there are times where it's just too much for you. Yeah. For men, same thing. It's when you're taking on too many responsibilities in your life, that's not a time to take on even more or make big life changes. So it's hard because we adults with ADHD don't tend to look ahead and plan. We're more spontaneous. We don't think about all the consequences. But I think if you begin to train yourself to try and think more about, well, what's coming up? How do I normally feel in this situation? When I go on vacation, do I like sitting around on a beach because my family likes that, or does that make me more crazy? So, taking all of these things into consideration and either making changes or avoiding things, those are things that we can do to make less stress in our lives.
So that P word, planning, just sounds like it's really helpful in dealing with stress and not being as stressed, but a lot of us with ADHD are not those natural planners, but it helps.
It's so hard, and that's why I always suggest, as hard as it is for many of us to use a planner, a lot of us are using computerized programming and software programs, apps, but if you can get into the habit of using that all the time instead of relying on your memory, which we have issues with, really utilizing what's out there, because there's so many things now, especially if you have a smartphone, they're incredible. Mm-hmm. So starting to rely more on those external systems, because our internal systems don't always work too well, then you have a better shot at minimizing stress and planning, the big P word.
Yeah. Now, is there any other tips that you can think of or suggestions to deal with de-stressing?
In my new book, in my very last chapter, I read about all kinds of things to help de-stress and keep yourself calm. One of the things that I talk about is setting up what I call Terry's comfort zone. And it's almost like a sensory area that you set up in your home to help you calm down. This is kind of a thing that bothers me, is that we focus so much on kids who have sensory issues, who have ADHD, who have autism or on the spectrum, and how can we help our kids? But we're neglecting our own health, our own needs. So what I suggest in the comfort zone that you can set up in the corner of your bedroom, you don't need a lot of space. You can toss a bunch of pillows in there, have your iPod with music or what I like even better is nature sounds. You can go online and get streaming nature sounds like birds and rivers and waterfalls. Turn that on. You can have low lighting. Have your teapot in there, for a calm little bit of tea. If you like to write, you can have a journal in there and write poetry or whatever, or if you like to sketch or paint, there's so many things you can put in there. And then if you have a family or, if it's a noisy household, you can put a little sign on your door, mom's time out, dad's time out. So again, it's these things that we can think of for our kids and we do for our kids, but we need it just as much as we need it for our kids.
I like that, Terry's comfort zone. I guess that's one of I've never heard that before. That's a new one, and it makes so much sense. And yeah, you'll do it for children, but you definitely need it for yourself. That self-care and that time out. And as you're saying it, I'm picturing this like beanbag type chair, comfortable with like all these pillows and pretty colors. And so yeah, maybe I'll design my own.
You can even put a hammock. I don't know about other people, but when I really need to calm down, I go out in my backyard and we have a hammock. And there's something about the hammock because I don't really understand how it works, but it's like every part of your body sinks in at the same weight, whatever, so that there's no press points or no pain or whatever. It's just for me a very comforting place to be. So you could get a hammock and just put it on the wall over two corners, just tack it up. Oh. And also have those hanging chairs.
Yep.
They have the kind of netting as you see for hammocks. So those kinds of things you can put in your little calm down room, and I think, why not?
Nice. And a lot of us with ADD are very creative, so we could come up with some really cool places and maybe share them online somewhere.
Yeah, an aquarium. There's another thing. When you go to doctor's office, dentist's office, you'll notice a lot of them have aquariums. It's very soothing hearing that bubble sound. I have an aquarium as a screensaver on my computer because I work like you do online for hours and hours a day. And I find it, it's just very calming. Because
when you say aquarium, I'm thinking, those are great, but they require so much maintenance. I'd probably kill the fish. But the fact that you can get a screensaver or go on TV, and there's ways to have that effect without having the work of having an actual aquarium.
Oh, yeah. Or the streaming nature sounds. If you just go online and do a Google search for streaming nature sounds, you won't believe. There was a time I went through a really bad insomnia episode. I just could not sleep. Every little thing woke me up. So I took my laptop in my bedroom and found one of those streaming nature things, babbling streams, thunderstorms, and rain on a tin roof. It's incredible what's out there, and it worked because not only did it block out all the noise in my house, it was just calming. It's really a wonderful thing.
Now, Terry, we're getting towards the end of the video. Is there anything that you'd like to share about stress management that you haven't? And also, can you give out your contact information once again before we go?
Yeah, I'd say that, well, it's kind of summing up what we talked about is start thinking more about your own needs. As adults, and especially if you're a parent, we're thinking about taking care of other people. We're thinking of pleasing other people. We're thinking of looking good for our bosses, looking good in social situations. But we're not really going inward and thinking about what do I really need? What will make me feel better? So I think we have to, because if you have ADHD, you're always, you're bouncing. You're externally bouncing, you're noticing this, you're noticing that, and that, becomes a negative influence internally. So I think we need to go in a positive way internally, if this is making sense, and thinking of strategies that will work for you, because what works for you may not work for me and vice versa. So going inward and say, okay, these kinds of situations don't make me feel well. I don't feel good. What can I do to make it better? And again, see it coming, have a plan. If that can be your mantra, I promise you that life will be easier if you can keep that in your conscious mind. So again, to reach me, my email address is terry@addconsults.com, or you can go to my website, addconsults.com, or queensofdistraction.com.